if the capital expenditure on this AI build out continues to increase, some investors will get a little leery of that, and then may sell those, those Magnificent Seven stocks. Hey, it's KP coming to you live from the Bahamas, Nassau, for the PRMG President's Cabinet. We had our awards dinner tonight, and it's fantastic seeing so many people here. I don't know if you know this, but we're almost 30% of our 1,300 employees have been here for 10 years or longer. Pretty crazy. This is our sales award trip. We're at Atlantis, and this is the Cove. So that kind of iconic pink hotel is that way, and I'm not going to the casino tonight like everybody else. A few of us are kind of relaxing here, having some cigars. But I have to get my Monday night video out and try and be disciplined. Oceans in the background. I'll try and do maybe a sunset video Thursday if I can think about it. Lots going on this week. The Fed is meeting this week, and they're still important and relevant because they set policy and determine the moves of money. We have personal consumption expenditure coming out on Thursday, along with a GDP report. See how the economy is doing and see how inflation is doing. That PCE report is, it's going to give us some more insights on how energy is looking, how energy costs are, hurting, of course, the consumer. And housing, we know, is more heavily weighted in the CPI report. So this will be interesting to see. So lots of reports, but also earnings reports. Q1 earnings season has kicked off. This is probably the heaviest week of earnings season. On the same week as the Fed meeting, on the same week as a PCE inflation reading, while we have a war going on that's been a little disruptive. So the flow of money, it matters. It impacts our rates and our business. We've been seeing rates pick up a little bit lately as rates, locks pick up as rates have come down a little bit. And so we'll keep an eye on that. But this will be Fed Chair Powell's last official meeting. Now, could he stay on longer? So his replacement, Kevin Warsh, he had his confirmation hearings. He got grilled. He did the whole meat grinder thing. And then magically after, and I think after a CNBC interview with the president, the Department of Justice is dropping the criminal charges against Fed Chair Powell, which is kind of an off-ramp to get the nomination pushed through for Kevin Warsh. So if that nomination goes through, then this truly is Jay Powell's last chair meeting. Now, will he stay on? I don't know. So I believe the civil case of, whether they're spending too much money on that building is still ongoing. But the Department of Justice head, Jeannie Pirro, she said, all right, we're not going to go after criminal charges. So we'll see where that goes, but that's all positive moving forward. By the way, there's the iconic hotel in the background. You can't quite see it. It is pink. But this place is very nice. We were supposed to be in Puerto Vallarta, but the cartels messed that up. So we had a last minute pivot about 45 days ago, and we're here. So Meta, Facebook, Google, formerly known as Alphabet, Apple, Amazon, Tesla, they're all reporting earnings this week. And those stocks have such massive weight in the S&P index. These are all multi-trillion dollar companies. And so how they move is going to move money around, stocks and bonds. Will their stocks sell off and money flow into bonds as maybe a safe haven for a better yield and return for money? If those stocks don't seem as appealing after their earnings report for yield of money. The flow of money matters, and it does actually impact interest rates. And so those are really, really heavily weighted and owned stocks around the world. So money could be moving massively this week, plus whatever the Fed says. So what they're looking for in the earnings reports, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not responsible for your losses, only your profits. I have to say that. It's funny, but I also don't want people taking stock tips because it's like not my, it's a side hustle. If the capital expenditure on this AI build out continues to increase, some investors will get a little leery of that, and then may sell those, those Mag 7, Magnificent 7 stocks. And if there's heavy selling, which we had a lot of heavy selling pressure last month, mostly because of the volatility and what's going on with the Iran conflict, you could potentially see some flow into cash or even flow into bonds. So they'll be looking to see, are they raising their guidance going forward? Are they saying they're getting ROI on all the money they're spending on AI and data centers? Just like all of us at our businesses, we're always trying to measure ROI on what we spend. Tomorrow here at our President's Cabinet, we have our channels get together. This is the reason we're here. We have really legit business meeting for about 5 hours, talk about how we're going to shape and make this platform at PRMG future-proof. And AI, of course, we talked about, just like most of this audience checks out on the, on the conference front, how we're looking at all of our spend and what we're doing and what's working and what do people like. So anyway, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Fed balance sheet, because Kevin Warsh has talked about wanting to shrink the balance sheet, which is down 26% from its high. So, just under 9 trillion. We're at like 6.4 trillion right now, 6.6, something like that. It's about 2 trillion in mortgage-backed securities, and I think about 4.3, 4.4 in treasuries. And he does not want to increase the balance sheet because he believes that is the systemic part of having higher inflation. Now, we all know a lot of central banks around the world have adopted modern monetary theory. And that's basically printing money to make sure they can keep their economies afloat. He's not a huge fan of that. So that's a big deal, which impacts inflation. Now, we need a certain amount of liquidity, obviously, a certain amount of dollars in the system, because we are the reserve currency of the world, to make sure that, economies can grow or even maintain. And so it'll be really interesting to hear any comments about that in the Q&A session after the news conference for the Fed meeting. And other than that, I mean, it's just, there's a lot going on. It's a really heavy week. Other central banks around the world are deciding whether to raise or cut or hold their rates. So this week is a very important week. And we also have a quarterly Treasury refunding announcement coming up here in the not too distant future. So this stuff impacts rates. We're about halfway through spring purchase season, maybe not quite halfway. But I think, I know everyone wants to talk about Iran and the conflict there. I think it's worth mentioning that outside of that conflict, about 1.7 barrels a day of oil have been knocked offline. In the last 3 weeks, there have been 10 refineries blown up, destroyed, caught fire, chemical leak, or whatever. Seems more than a coincidence. So I don't know if this strategy of going after infrastructure or it's just merely a coincidence. But that's the one big thing people are looking for in this Middle East conflict as well is Kharg Island's infrastructure and refineries going to get blown up? And really, like, those things take a long time to repair. So again, the flow of money, the flow of oil, earnings, all kinds of reports, Fed meeting. It's a crazy week. We will get back to you on Thursday. Cheers. Hey, it's KP coming to you live from the Bahamas for the last time. It's been a long time since I've been here. And man, shout out to everybody on LinkedIn having a great time at the Texas MBA and the Housing Wire gathering. Unfortunately, for the last word on the Crispin commentary tomorrow, I will be sitting on an airplane right at the time it starts. I got like 8 minutes before we take off. So I don't know what we're going to do here, but it's a very busy week. So there's a lot of money flowing around and a lot of data and a Fed meeting. So I'll get into it real quick. I promise. Okay. So Fed came out, allegedly Chair Powell's last meeting and before Kevin Warsh gets approved. So there were 4 dissenters. 3 of the dissenters basically said, let's remove the easing language from the Fed statement, which means, they're kind of like saying, hey, inflation is a thing and we need to watch out for it.
Now, that could all change quickly. We watched the Fed be wrong a bazillion times, and, no Fed rate cuts are projected this year. And, of course, that could change through the end of the year. And remember, Warsh is not saying, I want to come in and cut. He's saying, I want to come in and shrink the balance sheets. Big difference. So we'll see how that plays out. So that's one thing. PCE, personal consumption expenditure, 0.3% month over month. What's funny is like we're all very used to the headline and the core. And then, remember, core strips out food and energy because they're volatile. And energy has not been volatile for years, like literally several years. And so now that we have volatile energy going up because of the Iranian conflict, a lot of people are like, oh, well, 3.2%, on PCE, although core is obviously, not as high, because if you strip out energy, there's basically no inflation in America. So just one thing about that. So, man, for years, we've been talking about like inflation and tariffs and this and that. If not for energy, there's literally like almost no inflation. So think about that. GDP came out for the first quarter, 2%. 2%'s even keel. No growth, no slacking. And that could get revised up later on the other reads. So we'll have to watch that. But 2% means like things are good and good enough. And these guys are. Anyway, so five of the Mag 7 have reported earnings this week. Tons of cash flow, tons of free cash, billions of dollars. Some of them raised their guidance on what they're going to spend on capital expenditure, which disappointed some analysts. But these companies are making so much freaking money, and the stock market is at all-time highs, which is good for the wealth effect, which is good for housing. So we'll keep an eye on that. OPEC, okay? We all know it's like the oil cartel in the Middle East. Big news this week. Big. United Arab Emirates dropped out of OPEC. And they basically said, hey, look, there's an embargo or a blockade, if you will. Obviously us putting it on there. I don't know. Us, Iran, mostly us. And they said, hey, we have all this production that isn't inhibited by the blockade, and they can produce up to 5 million barrels per day. And OPEC has always told the UAE, like, you got to do what we say you're going to do. And they're like, yeah, we're out. And it reminds me of Brexit when, the UK is like, yeah, we're in this union and we got all this stuff going on for us, and you guys are telling us how to run our economy. Yeah, we're out. So these socialistic pacts, if you will, UN is another one, BRICS, they're all getting dissolved. And I think long term, that's a big thing for our economy in the U.S. and for our power and the dollar domination. But that was really big news under the radar. Home price appreciation, the FHFA in February. February was not the best month, coming off of January, which had some weather events. The FHFA home price appreciation was flat in February, but still up 1.7% year over year. So home prices are hanging in there. Jobs hanging in there. Fed meeting. Chair Powell, hey, let's take one last shot and say that, we just have to watch and not do rate cuts. So there's no rate cut bias. They're not saying they're hiking. There's a big difference between the two. So, we're all just kind of in this state of, let's just flow. It's a flow state. So I hope everyone's doing well and everyone's getting home, and conference season is coming to an end. Mortgage Innovator Conference, Huntington Beach next week. We'll be there Tuesday through Friday, and we will try and innovate and bring you great content and serve for success. So hope everyone gets out there. Have a good one. Cheers.
You've been listening to KP Talks Dollars and Cents, a top-rated show for those who want to learn about the economy and mortgage environment. Tune in each week for more episodes, and And please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Kevin Perenio does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through KP Talks Dollars and Cents. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. For more info, follow KP Talks Dollars and Cents on all of our social channels.